Hey guys, it's Sandy Missouri from Expert Book for You, and I have with me today author Jerry Klinger, who this is very exciting because he's different than most of my authors in that his book is fiction. So this is his book right here, the Boynton Beach Chronicles, and Tales of Norman is this particular edition. And if you need a good laugh, some relief from what's going on, the crazy in the world, I highly recommend picking this up. You will be giggling all over the place. So, well, Jerry, thank you so much for joining us.
Well,
there we go.
Thank you. And I've got a scratch in my Norman for the.
Oh my, we cut out a little bit.
Okay.
I didn't hear what you just said. I don't know if it was just my headphones that I didn't catch it, but if you wouldn't mind repeating.
Not a problem at all. I was just saying that occasionally I have to lean over. I don't scratch my part cap. That's Norman from the stories.
Ah, your partner down there, huh?
Yeah, keeps me on the straight and narrow.
So the internet has been doing funny things, so I just want to give you that warning, especially with the audio cutting in and out. So Jerry, if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, because I know that writing is kind of more your hobby than what you do professionally, right?
Well, professionally, I'm retired now. I don't know. Actually,
you're the busiest retired person I've ever met.
I run a historical society, and I write, historical articles. But there is another side, like with everybody, that your children don't know about. They said they thought they know everything about you, but then maybe they don't. There's actually an alter ego, which I like to write humor. Because everything, I look around and you can't help but see things that are funny. Down here in Boynton, everything is funny. Not like they intended, but you can't help it. Can I just give an example? Right up the street from me on this place called Jog Road. And remember, this is Retirement Central, where the average age down here is between 75 and 127. And they have a retirement community they thought would be a good seller. So what did they name it? Journey's End. And you're thinking, you're driving by and you don't want to look over there too often because you're afraid you're going to hit the journey's end. It's serious. That's the actual name. So you're saying, okay, be effective and have a laugh.
I wonder who came up with that. Like, who thought this would be a good name?
Somebody's unemployed by now.
Just trying to make sure that it's actually streaming.
Okay.
Well, we're just going to hope that the technology is working. Fingers crossed. I'm feeling a little bit nervous about it, so we may need to redo it. But hopefully it's all working the way it's supposed to.
Okay.
Sorry, bear with me. I know dead air is like the best thing for a show, right? Bear with me just one moment as I try to figure out if this is working or not. Facebook, why are you making this so difficult? Okay, well, you know what? We're just going to keep on going and fingers crossed, hope for the best. All right, so sorry about that. So when did you start writing?
Oh, probably about, which one? The humor, the serious stuff? What?
I mean, anything that wasn't for, school or, your pleasure writing, I guess.
Well, it's the school. I stopped writing that after I got all my degrees, which happened. No, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. I've been doing the history stuff. And I guess you probably know I run the Jewish American Society for Historic Preservation, one of the side things. We put up the historic roadside markers talking about the commonality of the American experience and the kind of thing that you're driving by 60 miles an hour and you say, what the hell was that? That's the kind of thing we do. And done well over 100 projects. We've done five different countries for that. And we're probably, for a organization, we get close to 7 million a year who see something we've done. It's incredible stuff. And we don't even have a big museum except for outdoors.
Wow.
So I write about that, and I write stuff, and then there's humor. Keeps me semi.
When you first started writing, or started thinking about publishing, did you have any fears around it? Were there any challenges, or was it just kind of a natural progression for you?
If it wasn't for spell check, there would be a lot of fears. And now there's the advanced program of Grammarly, because even when I was a kid trying to go through elementary and then junior high, I couldn't put a comma in the right spot if God had helped me.
Wow.
I depend on that kind of thing because I think in packets. And so I write that way sometimes, and then I think it sounds good, and then the system will say to me, not so good. It's great, so it's fun.
And so, I mean, really, your only hesitations were around the grammar, not so much, the blank page, or, I mean, writing just kind of bubbled out of you, or is there a process to it?
No, it really, you're right. It probably is a certain degree of process because you come up with an idea or a thought. Like this morning, I was working on a story I'd put aside for, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And then I looked at it, reread it, and I started laughing at it myself, saying, "This is funny." So I printed out a copy, and I let my wife read it over there, and I'm going to see how she responds to it because she's usually one of the protagonists in the story without being named. And if she thinks it's okay, then I take the blessing. But yeah, but I have to come back to it because over time, your mind. You think in the background, your mind thinks in the background, and then I start adding things to the story, and I go back and I fill it in. And by the time I start writing it, it's pretty much thought out, and I just do it.
So your process is kind of really, you're percolating it in your mind until it spills out onto the paper or the computer as it is now.
Yeah, it's sort of like the cup of coffee spilling out on the paper. Yeah, I guess.
Didn't mean it that way, but as opposed to writing an outline, taking bits and pieces or something like that. I mean, you're kind of formulating it in your head before putting it into a written format.
Some of the stories that I did are actually quote and counter quotes. So I will actually go out and I'll start searching for quotes, and I'll put those down, or maybe I'll put down a little thought. But like you said, it's percolating. And then I just put it together, and then I go back and I look at the quote and say, "Hey, that fits," or "That's dumb as anything." And then you drop in this, put it together, and they have a good time doing it. If I like a story, if I find that I'm smiling or entertaining myself, I said, "Okay, this is good. I'll go for it." Then I go back and I plug in the Grammarly and say, "All right, what did I do?" And it tells me you put the comma, you didn't do this and that. It's fun. It's something that I enjoy, and if it brings smiles to people, that's great.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about your book. I mean, even though it's fiction, it's kind of semi-autobiographical, right?
I'll share a story with you.
Okay.
I have 3, and all of them think, "All right, fine." They bought the book because it's not good to you, because all the proceeds from the book go to a charity. And if it can help bring a little bit of good for somebody else, then it's fine. I mean, God's been good to me. What do I need more? So one of my sons sent me a text message, and he and his wife were laying in bed, and she was reading the book, and she was just laughing her head off. And he said, What are you doing?" And he started reading her passages from the book, and he started laughing. And it turns out, he said that he wrote to me, he said, "We can actually hear Mom and you actually having that kind of a dialogue." I thought I disguised it better than that.
So the names might have been changed, but the mannerisms maybe not so much, huh?
They saw through it. I'm going, darn, I didn't do a good enough job of hiding me.
So what, I know that I know that the book actually, we compiled it from articles and stories that you had written partially, and then you wrote some fresh content for the book. But some of it was things that you had written over time, right, and published on a blog.
I had written a number of stories over the years. Just randomly I'd put something out. But for the book, to put it together, you can't just simply take old stuff. I had to put new things together because new things are always happening.
Right.
And, I had things sitting on the side that I had not really finished or did. And so it's really a mix of things. And even the book itself is, it's reflections on life down here in Boynton Beach, which for the most part are funny, but yet we also have serious elements too. And you have to, like we all do in life, we have multiple sides and we have to kind of put it together to make a whole. So we did.
When you first started writing this series that became the book, what was your motivation? I mean, why did you start writing to begin with?
Why did I start writing? The humor or the history stuff?
Well, the history stuff, that's more professional, right?
No.
I mean, no.
No.
So both. Why did you start writing? I mean, kind of what was the what was the push that made it that it, you had to get it out of your head finally?
Well, writing is actually it burned some time for me. I tried taking up golf, but I was the worst golfer in the world. To tell you how bad I was, and that's why I had to give up the thought of being retired and playing golf, other than maybe being a starter at the golf course, and I could say no guy. I was playing at a course over in Arizona, out of Phoenix. And if you've ever been out there, some of the courses are beautiful things, but you're in the desert environment. And you get up on this beautiful tee, and at every tee, there's a little, there's something near your feet. It sort of looks like a warning sign with a snake on it. And it says, if your ball goes into the rough, don't go after the ball, meaning there's snakes out there.
Uh-huh.
I started off on the first hole. I had 14 balls in the bag with me. I figured by hole number 5, I was out of balls, and I was not going to argue with the snakes over who gets the balls. This is not for me. I'm not meant for this. But so I use the writing as a form of outlet, a form of entertainment, and and I share it because I think humor is certainly when everybody's kind of biting their nails over everything going on. Why not smile a little bit and have some fun? Because there's fun out here. I mean, our language, the English language, is not precise. It's imprecise. So this is something from this morning, and pardon me for sharing.
No, please.
My wife was, she hadn't quite gotten out of bed. Have fans in the ceiling because down here in Boynton Beach it's hot, humid, and even with the air conditioning, we have fans. So we have a fan up in the ceiling. So she said to me, "Can the fan go any higher?" So I looked at her and I said, "Well, I could get somebody out here to build an extra 2 feet on the house, and we could raise the roof and make it higher if you like."
She meant faster?
She meant faster. Can you make it higher? And I said, "Well, I could make it if I raised the roof. Yeah, I could do it."
So humor has kind of always been part of you.
You have to take that, with a grain of salt. But after 44 years, I don't know if she always laughs at it, but she certainly been out of shape at me.
Well, I want to talk more about, kind of what got you to the point that you went from, I have this outlet of writing online, this blog, to I need it to be a book. Because so many people want to write a book like yours and they never do. And so I'm really kind of interested in, what it is that, for lack of a better term, pushes people over the edge where it becomes not, and it would be nice, but this must happen.
It wasn't about this. It wasn't about the humor stuff at all. When I do historic markers and projects, And usually I'll talk about it. I'll write a story. It could be the Post to the Prairie Connection out of Kansas to San Diego Jewish World does stuff. Times of Israel. I mean, they're all over the place. And I've been interviewed for TV and radio and things of that sort about the History Project. So I have tons of articles that I've never really collated, and I just never knew how to do it. I just never got around to doing it. I was out in your neighborhood in San Diego with Don Harrison.
It's okay. You can call him my dad.
All
Everybody
right.
knows he's my dad.
Nice guy I was meeting out there. I came out there because we were out searching, and you have to do searching and you have to do preliminary work before you can do any historical marker projects, because siting and permissions and getting people involved, this is all fundamental. And we're in the car and we're looking at various sites in the San Diego area, and we're just talking. And he knew that I had done a number of articles, for him, on history. And he asked me what everybody asked me after I write stories about the markers. But he always thought the backstory is more important and more interesting usually than the front story. The front story, go to Wikipedia, you got it. But the backstory is what makes things interesting. So I always had the backstories, which made things interesting. And he said, why don't you put a book together? I've heard that all over the place. And I said, I've never done it. I don't know how. I don't have time. I'm out saving the world. Maybe I'm not saving the world. I don't pay attention to it. And then we thought about it a little. I thought about it a little bit and said, why don't we do an experiment? I have stories all over the place. I have humor stories. Rather than start off with serious history or things that would tie into the historical society, why don't we do things and see what happens that would make people smile a little bit? Let's start that as the experiment. And I explained to him these stories I've written over time. It's not a single sitting or I did it within the past 6 months. They were done over years. So sometimes the mood changes, the tone changes. You can almost hear the voice change. But I told him I would need help doing that because editing is going to be a problem and I'm frequently distracted. And I need somebody from a professional side will help me bring this together, because I'm not going to do it. I mean, I'll do it to a certain extent, but I'm not going to do it. So that's why I needed help. I needed help from Don. Then I needed help from you to do it. I wasn't going to do it by myself without somebody who knew what world they were doing. I needed a professional to guide me. Or as other people would say, I need somebody to hold the hand and saying, does this work? Does that work? And that's how it came together. I said, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And that's how we started on the Boynton Beach Chronicles.
Nice. So really, really for you, the inspiration part is easy. And that is the creative part, the ideas, the writing, those things. But it was the perspiration part that was kind of intimidating.
No, down here in Boynton Beach, we perspire pretty.
Right. Well, usually when I talk to would-be authors, that's, kind of how I describe the writing process is 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. And that, the technical side is that perspiration side that, my team tries to take that away, take that on for people so that it's a little bit easier.
Technical side is certainly intimidating because like I said, I had no experience. I mean, I had articles all over the place. I'm used to dealing with editors. I'm used to dealing with, various magazines and news stories. That I'm used to. But putting it together in a book form, I'm not used to.
Uh-huh.
And I'm still doing projects. I mean, this year was a little bit of a turnback, like we've all had them in
Yeah.
The COVID mess. I've had 6 international.
I haven't heard about that. What's going on with that?
Down here?
Well, in general.
We have no idea what's going on down here. Boynton Beach. I mean, when I went at the Publix, which is our local grocery store, and we always have, and they started doing, you can go in this store, but you can only exit this store. And I said, okay, we can do that with the mask and the gloves. Then they began to put in one-way road systems. You can go down this aisle, but you can't go down that aisle because you have to go down this aisle. And okay, and then people were getting all upset in the aisle saying, "You went down a one-way aisle," and about a week ago, the one-way system disappeared. They just pulled up all the one-way signs, and I was going, I don't know what that means. So if you're asking me, do we know what we're doing? We're just confused. We have no idea. We're seniors, most of us. So we walk around not knowing where we are. And that's, by the way, where I live. That's very fortunate that I live in the kind of community development we're in, because each house is different. And since most of us get confused half the time, if all the houses were looking identical, if we went out for a walk, we'd be trying to get into the wrong house 90% of the time. But so we can find our way around.
The California track housing might not work for your community, huh?
Well, fortunately not here, but there are other places, and it's not common to walk into a house that the door was unlocked saying, "You don't look like my wife."
I imagine there's got to be some really great stories passed around at the clubhouse when you're allowed to visit in person.
I know there are stories out there, and crawling in the bed and then waking up and saying, "I guess I made a mistake."
Wow. Well, somebody must be a heavy sleeper.
You just keep it light and keep a sense of humor. There's no.
Okay, good. It is working. I now see that the technology is working, so I'm very happy about that. It just popped up finally. So I know the book only recently came out. It hasn't been out for that long. Has there been any effects of having the book? I mean, besides your kids realizing, that it might be about you and about them, but has anything happened since you've had the book?
In what sense? Have people been banging on my door saying?
Yeah. Personally, professionally, I mean, in any way. I know that that you've got some bookstores that are interested in carrying it and maybe having you come in and speak, right?
Yep, that's that's true. And I mean, it's nice. It's nice to do that, be able to share. And as I said, my primary interest in it is that if it raises any money, that it goes to charity. So I'm not looking for it for myself. That God bless us so that I have enough, and I have enough to keep on doing it, to do what I want. And most of the time, we just give away whatever we have, any to charitable needs, which is one of my daughter-in-laws. You might not agree with that, but doing.
So I mean, well, I guess it's just about to be in your local bookstore, so you wouldn't necessarily be recognized yet.
No, you have to. Well, I'd probably go on eyes, but no, it can go in there, and you can have fun, and you can have down here, you can actually sit in the bookstore, socially distanced, but we don't wear masks.
Oh wow!
So they can actually look at you and say, "Is that a sneer on his face?" Or
well, I've been looking for clear masks so that people can both look at me and I can be safe and keep everyone else safe.
Face mask, the things that go all the way down like that. I was at one of the kosher delis not too long ago, and some guy showed up with a paper bag cut out, put on his head.
Oh my goodness!
And he had little eyes and mouth. It was kind of circles he put up for his eyes and circled around the mouth area. So it looked semi-professional, but it was a standard grocery paper bag, and I was going, all right.
Yeah. We had an incident here in San Diego that made national news. Some joker thought it would be funny to put on a clown hood, a Klan hood.
Oh, really?
In the beginning, yeah.
That must have been entertaining.
Yeah, it was. It was not well received. So,
It,
I'm not sure what the guy was thinking, but it made news.
I'll give you a sort of an aside. One of the earliest memories I have, I was just was a young teenager. I actually remember being on picket lines in Northern Virginia for open housing, for fair housing. And it was the first time that I'd ever seen the guys with the pointy hats. They were across us parading opposite. And never seen those nice folks before. But, Maryland, Northern Virginia, we had our share of them. Probably still do, I suppose. So,
Yeah.
Don't care to.
Well, but back to books. Back to books. Why do you think that it's important for people to tell their stories or to write their books?
Why is it important for them to write their books?
Or do you think it's important? I mean, do you think that people should share their stories, or do you not think that it's important? And if you do think it's important, why? And if you don't, then why?
Again, I'll give you a different story.
Okay.
One of the things that I was involved in was with the nursing home of Washington, the Hebrew. And we have a number of seniors there who are lucid and they're pretty in good shape. They have stories to tell, and their own children don't know their own stories. But they don't know, didn't ask, they don't want to know. I mean, how many times have you heard children saying, gee, I wish, Pop had told me more about his life. And they sit around afterwards at Levian, and they're looking at these pictures saying, who's this picture of? And everybody goes, I don't know. You know who it is? I didn't know that Pop was in the Air Force in World War II. When did that happen?
Yeah.
You have stories to tell, and you can do video recordings of life. But you can also, for those people who can't do that, and it would be good to just write it down and share. So should people do it? Of course, because even if you don't do it for publication, you do it for your family. And if your own children don't want to know, your grandchildren might actually want to know about their heritage and who they are and where they came from. And then back to their parents, hey, when did this happen with Grandpa? And they'll go, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing to have. And it gives a sense of there's no finality to your story or to your life. That your great-grandchildren can say, hey, we're doing okay. And we're all part of the same continuum. So why not?
Yeah. So for people who have been thinking about it but haven't made any move to actually start writing or recording or anything, what would you say to them? What advice do you have for them?
Break it down in segments. Break it down into pieces. If you try and say, I'm going to write my entire story, probably won't happen because you'll be overwhelmed. But if you start thinking to yourself, let me just take a episode of my life and I'll write about that. Or let me take a period of time when you're in college. You write about that kind of story where, you can manage that more easily. But once you have a couple of stories from these different pieces, you can then link them together, and then you see the transitions and you build together. And with the help of professionals, you can then put it together so that it's actually a fuller flow to it. That you're saying, this is not bad. You're not going to cover from the moment you were born to the moment just before, hopefully. You can remember that before something happens. But you can talk about your life and how you lived it, what it meant to you, what you felt. And if you take it in little packets, it works. But don't try and eat the whole watermelon in one bite.
Yeah. Great advice. So I have a question from somebody who's watching us live on YouTube right now.
Oh.
And Jesus, I'm guessing is his name by his handle. He's watched a lot of these interviews, so I think he's probably really interested in writing or something. But he wants to know. He says he's been trying to get his dad to do a video about his life in the war. and stuff like that. But his dad says that it's too painful, and he's wondering if maybe you have some advice for how he can encourage his dad to share his stories.
That's it's a good point. It's a good question. My family is on both my mother and father's side of survivors, and I don't mean they came over in 1933. My mother was liberated by the British from Bergen-Belsen,
Wow.
liberated by American forces from Buchenwald. Now, my mother would never stop talking about it. My father never would talk. He was too traumatized.
Oh, Yoni, okay.
But yet, as time went by, there was a realization that unless the story was shared, the story was lost. So, not that they would talk to me necessarily, but it was easier sometimes to talk to a third party. And then you could come back in and say, can you share with me now what was happening? Can you tell me about the numbers that were tattooed on his arm? He wouldn't say anything before. He would tell the other person. He used to go on radio and talk about the stories of the Holocaust. Wouldn't talk, but that he would do. And then you can come back and say, can you now share a little bit more with me? And as time goes on, that was the experience I knew. So that sometimes a different individual is going to be the way to do things. And then you can come in if it's too difficult for a parent to talk to you personally. But they don't want to hurt you by their own pain. And that's not unusual for survivor parents. They frequently protected their children, hid it from their children, because they didn't want what happened in the trauma of their life to affect yours.
Mm-hmm.
About their trauma, unless we knew and understood it, how are we going to make a difference for our lives and our children? We have to know. And
yeah.
That little by little, these little packet approaches seem to have worked.
So let me just recap, make sure that I understand what you've said. So you're recommending, first of all, maybe to have a third party ask the questions, maybe a grandchild or a friend or somebody like that can ask small questions, and then maybe to ask for specific stories rather than just, hey, tell me about the war.
I think that might be right. Not even have to be a grandchild, not a family. Could be a friend, somebody that would be a little bit more distant. The parent was afraid of injuring the child or passing on the trauma. Then they'd be reluctant to even tell the grandchild. Grandchild to understand. I mean, we're already dealing with generations apart now, and it's almost beyond imagination. But if these are personal stories and they're very special and very important, sometimes somebody who is not related is going to be the door to open them up. And when they begin to open up, then they become a little bit more comfortable in understanding of why they need to share it with their own family. That would help.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. And I got his name wrong. His name is Yoni, and he says thank you as well in the chat. So how can people learn more about you, learn more about your Historic Preservation Society? And let's see, what the proceeds for the book, where are they going again?
They're going to the Good People Fund.
The Good People, yes. So if you could tell us about the Good People Fund and what they do a little bit.
Well,
there we go. Uh-oh, we lost you. There, you're back. Welcome back.
I think I'm back. Cross technology, multiple phones, multiple computers, and it still screws in there. Like everybody, sometimes we think our stories are simple. None of us are simple. We're all complicated creations, and we're all made up of many different blends and elements of inputs and experiences. So perhaps the way to know more about somebody like myself, you have multiple lives, and then we put it down for what we want to share. I'm trying to think. We only have a certain amount of time, but I want to share things with you guys because there's ways Judy and I look at things that's different. It sounds a little morbid, but Judy and I, we made arrangements for the time comes when we would pass, and funeral arrangements. You don't want the kids to have to deal with that kind of stuff, and so we made the arrangements, and we picked out a site along the road so that when the kids come by, they don't even have to get out of the car. They kind of roll down the window and chuck a stone, and they can hit the stone with it, and they say, "Yep, there was Grandpa. Keep going." Car. But on the stone, both of us agreed about something. And this kind of reflects on who we are because it has multiple levels. We absolutely, positively, totally refused to have loving mother and grandmother, loving father, grandfather. We refused to have that kind of stuff. What we wanted we'll have our name, you have your date, your dash, because your dash is really what's the important stuff. And the other end of it. And on my side, we said, all right, this is what we're going to do. On my side, it's going to read, he did more than some and less than others. But on her side, it's going to read, she put up with more than some and less than others. Now, what does that can mean? That's true. I've done quite a few accomplishments, whether it's, from life, degrees, professional life, service in the military, all from different things. By the way, the military, the U.S. Army wouldn't have me. I had bad knees. I played rugby at the University of Maryland, and I tore myself to God no end. I was in the Israeli Army.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up in the Sinai. They had a different point of view. They gave you what they call a Kravi level, a fighting level. So I was 82% of anybody else. So, if they told me to jump out of a plane and be a sanchan, which is a paratrooper, they would carry me off the field. But if they planted me somewhere, and usually I was planted over machine guns, that was fine. And that's nothing brave, and I'm bragging about it. I was scared to death. Most of the time, you're just plainly frightened. But that was a different part of life. Then I have yeshiva background. I have the Holocaust background. I have story background. But that's true for all of us. If you just break it down into little pieces, we all have multiple lives and multiple stories that you can blend into a whole. But if you try and talk about it all at one time, it's not there. So it's the same thing with the Boynton Beach Chronicles. There's multiple types of stories in there. Yeah, there are funny stories. And the kids will look at it and going, pretty good. But I also have stories about the Holocaust from down here. I have stories from history, from experiences, American stories. And this all reflects on the diverse lives that we all share, all have. And kids really don't know much about that. So when you read your story, as I'm saying, if you do little pieces of your life, you'll have a full, rich story to put together in a full book form. But you need help.
For sure. So tell us about the Good People Fund, what that is and how you chose them.
I used to be associated with Danny Siegel. Danny Siegel is one of the great fathers of America's tzedakah giving. And he used to run a organization called the Ziv Tzedakah Fund. Well, the Ziv Tzedakah Fund is no longer in operation, but one of the descendant organizations of that is run by Naomi Eisenberger, who was his executive director. And what the Ziv Tzedakah Fund did is that they avoided the big institutional giving factories, where you can give $1 and 90% of it ended up going to administrative cost or some new 50-inch color TV set because they got to do whatever it is, or they have special, we're going to meet over in Aspen this year and we're going to discuss our plan here. And, the money was, as they say, oiskavav negelt, the money was just poof, wasted. And it never really got to the people that it needed. Danny focused on small organizations. Usually they're volunteer driven. They are not heavy on the, high end people getting paid big salaries and stuff. These were people that wanted to do stuff. but the money had to get to the people on the ground. So we even put a limit that we tended to stay with, because I was associated there, with groups that have annual revenues of 500,000 or less.
Mm-hmm.
You can get careful accounting of every penny. You know exactly what's going in. You do site visits. You get to know the people, and you have to get to trust people too.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned the idea of giving, and I created To Save a Life, which is a charitable organization, a 501c3. It's pretty much along the same lines. And somewhere down the road, our estates will be going there, to do that. And I told the kids, I don't care what you do, but you have to give the money away. And, that's going to be their job. Not to inherit the money. I'm not here to make you wealthy. I'm here just to give you the opportunity to become humanly wealthy, rich, and then share that with your own family. Mm-hmm. So from that, I learned the technique, and because the Jewish American Society for Historic Preservation is actually consuming more of my time, I still keep To Save a Life, and I still run tzedakah projects, but not as many. Naomi, who I was very good friends with, she's a wonderful woman, and has continued along these lines of finding all organizations that are primarily volunteer, highly efficient. None of this 90% goes to them and 10% to the people. It has to be the other way around or even higher. Mm-hmm. It has to be the people on the ground, gets to them. And then you have to account for each penny. It's serious. Yeah. Some of these guys are businesses, and that's what I came to learn.
Yes, they are. There are a couple of charities that I really have an issue with for that very reason.
Yeah, it's you get a bad taste on that. Mm-hmm. So because I knew where this money goes, I knew the people involved, and she puts out a publication every year showing how much money went to where, names the charities, names the people involved. You can read a little synopsis about it, and you can call them. You can learn on your own. He's not saying, hey, just give me the money. He's talking about how to get the money to the people to make it effective. And everybody has different flavors. You like chocolate, I like vanilla, somebody likes strawberry, somebody likes tutti frutti. Who cares? Pick something. Mm-hmm. Like this, pick it. If that's your thing, great, go for it, do it. And that's what she offers. So if there's revenues coming in from the book, it's going to go there. I'm not telling her where to do it because I know how it's going to be effectively used. That's where I wanted the money to go, to get to folks that need it. Mm-hmm. From the hurricanes, the horrific economic disaster of this COVID mess. And yeah, we're coming out of it. I'm not saying we're not, but a lot of people have been hurt and they ain't coming out of it that easily and they need help.
Yeah.
So how to do it? Give it to the big guy and have the money vanish, or give it to a small guy, local, tiny, on the ground, and make it effective. That's what it is.
And if people want to donate to the fund directly, besides buying the book, where shall we send them? I'm going to put a lower third there with the website.
Well, you can do it either through To Save a Life, which is tsal.org, tsal.org, or you can go to the Good People Fund. And you get a nice little, get the usual.
And the Good People Fund is www.thegoodpeoplefund.com.
You got it. Is it com or org? I have to take a look again.
Let me look in the book here. Let's see, I think we have it on the last page there, right? Let's see here. Maybe it's in the beginning of the book. You're right. .org. It's Good People Fund, not The Good People, and .org.
That's what happens when you get older. Good people. I always think they are the good people.
Right. Well, that's what I was writing too.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Let's see if I can. Let me edit that real quick to separate them. There we go. Aha, better. All right, so if you guys, first of all, absolutely, you should go over to Amazon and pick up a copy of the Boynton Beach Chronicles because you'll enjoy it. It will make you laugh. It will make you think. And it also goes to benefit a great charity. And then if you are feeling so inspired to bless some others as well, head on over to tsal.org and or goodpeoplefund.org. And, no amount is too small or too large.
And more importantly, pick the flavor of ice cream you like to donate to. You'll say that I want it to go to children. I want it to go to help stray doggies. I want it to go to help whatever. It's what's important to you, and ask that your money be directed to that area, and that's what it'll be done.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, I know that our interview has gone a little bit longer than what I told you it might be, so I don't want to keep you too long, but I have been enjoying talking to you so much. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Well, I've been encouraged to do volume 2.
Yes.
And you work on stuff continually. Like I'm doing a project in Israel that's distracting me, and it gets a little frustrating. It's a very tiny project, but it's a very big and important one, and it's taken 5 months to get approval to do it. I don't know. Can I just share that?
Yeah, by all means.
Well, we all know we know of the Hatikva. The Hatikva literally in Hebrew means the hope. It is the national anthem of Israel. It was written. The words were written by a man named Naftali Imber in about the late 1870s. And he was living in Rishon LeZion in Israel at the time. It was a very pioneer type of environment. And he used to recite the poem. It was called Tikvatenu at the time. One of the people there was a young guy. He was a violinist, but he was there as a pioneer and as a farmer. His name was Shmuel Cohen. He heard that and he said, wow. He adapted the poem to music. He took something from his homeland, Romania, put it together, and that music stayed and stuck. And that together eventually became the modern national anthem of Israel. So most of us who don't live in Israel, most of us may not speak Hebrew. Maybe we can, say one or two lines of the.
I think there's a Kadima in there, right?
Humble a little bit, and we go hum, 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 hum. But we know the music. Well, Imber was buried in Jerusalem. He's, his resting place is not too bad. It's good shit. And I was wondering through this historic programming that we do. I said, wonder what happened to Cohen. Well, we found him in the old cemetery of Rishon LeZion. His gravesite had been deteriorated. It was broken. It was just completely. It was embarrassing about what poor condition the composer of the music of the national anthem of Israel had degenerated into.
Wow.
It took us 5 months. We got approval from the city of Rishon that we can repair that, provided we pay for everything. It's a question of doing it. Of course, you're going to do it. But sometimes it gets a little bit overwhelming because you go through the bureaucracies and you go through the people, and it's not always just a 1, 2, 3. People that sometimes get emotional about this stuff and the repair and the process, and you have to deal with the Chevra Kadisha and all the layers. But we're doing it. We're engaged in that right now. But then you want to distract yourself a little. So I come back to some of my humor stuff, and you just take completely out of it. And that gives you balance again in life. Because we're all complicated people and complicated animals. And you take one and you balance against the other, and we'll find the middle, like the seesaw. We'll find that point where we're not up, we're not down, we're just nice and even. And we keep on going. And that's what I do.
Nice. So what I kind of heard in that is that there might be another couple books coming.
Yeah, there might be.
We got another Boynton Beach and maybe the Jewish the Preservation Society, the placards, right?
Well, you can do the placards. I've done 11 projects in Israel
Wow.
of major sorts. I mean, I was the one that created the Exodus Memorial for the ship.
Wow.
There was never a memorial there. We finally did it. It was back in 2017. We had, like, I don't know, 1,000 people, ministers, and all the machers showed up for that kind of stuff. But there is always a need to remember, because we shape our future if we can remember our past. If we destroy our past and have no past, then we're going to be sort of running around naked into the world and not knowing where we're going. The past isn't always great, and it's not always done nicely and not always perfect, but we can learn from it, and then we can move forward and make a better future. For the idea. So
yeah. Amen. Amen. Well, one more time, I'm just going to show your book here and see if I can't get it all on screen. There we go. So guys,
the hardback, you got the softback.
Yeah. I've got both, but this was the one that I found quicker. So, guys, head over to Amazon. You can pick it up in hardback or softback, Barnes & Noble, wherever you like to buy books. Head over there. Check out the Boynton Beach Chronicles, Tales of Norman. The book is hysterical. It really is. And just to get my little promo in there, if you're thinking of writing a book and you need some help trying to, get your steps in order, you can go over to my website, expertbookforyou.com. That is the number 4 and the letter U, expertbookforyou.com. And you can download a free copy of my book, Book It. So there we go. We have done the required commercial. And again, I want to thank you for coming and spending so much time with us and sharing your thoughts and your life with us. This was great. I learned so much.
It was actually fun to do.
You sound surprised.
Yeah, it's not like I had to, give any blood or get a shot with one of those nasty needles. This was good.
Yeah, well, that's the benefit of remote, right? No mask. Anyways, Jerry, stay with me for just 1 second. I'm going to close the broadcast and then I'll be right back with you. Guys, until next time, I will see you next month. Remember, Authors Week is the first week of every month, and we'll be interviewing more authors and learning more about their stories and their writing process and just about them. So until then, just, go forth and bookify. Bye, guys.